Welcome to CTO Think, a podcast about leadership, product development, and tech decisions between two recovering chief technology officers. Here are your hosts, Don Vandemark and Randy Burgess.
Hey, Randy, what are you up to this week?
Let's see. I've been working at work. My team had a slow month just based on people that were out of office. And we had some, probably, I guess, what I would consider the biggest blocks of a particular project that were kind of out of my control. So I would say I had a level of patience that I normally don't think I've ever had. That I was just like, all right, I'm going to just let this play out. I don't need to get worked up, even though things are going slower than I had wanted. So I don't know if that's maturity or just settling or what, but that was a new one for me. Because usually, I guess I'm usually in control of everything, the whole stack, the whole system. And at a bigger firm, I have to depend on things I'm not in control of. And when those don't all work together, then we get blocked a little bit more. So I think that's normal with a bigger company. So yeah, that's been my week. What about you?
So what you're saying is that that this past week you've had trouble deciding where to spend your time. Is that correct?
A little bit. I mean, I made choices pretty quick on what to do with my time.
So I use that as a segue to our topic today.
Yes.
So I was looking over some articles, and I came across one from December last year, where the Los Angeles CTO Forum did a survey about where all their members saw as the biggest challenges for the new year, and they ranked them. And what they did was the largest three. There are a bunch in here. The first and second ones were recruiting, hiring, personnel stuff. The second one was security. We've done some talking on those two. The third one was, as a tech leader, where do I spend my time? And so we've talked about this a little, where as a tech leader, do we spend our time coding? Do we spend our time managing, that sort of thing? But it's almost bigger than that.
Yeah.
So it's certainly bigger than the do I code or do I manage? It's a where do I look when I'm managing, that sort of thing.
Well, once you get to a certain scale, you don't have coding is not an option.
Right, and that's the other part as well. So how deep do you dig into the technical details, things like that? With Aspire EDU, we've got a couple developers, and they do the work of doing the fixes, adding the features, things like that. I'm not involved in the coding. I'm not significantly involved in the code reviews. But where I end up spending my time is monitoring their conversation on Slack. And it's more of a, hey, let me see what they're talking about so that I can see if I need to nudge them in a direction, or just let them roll. And I actually, we have about 20 rooms for a 5-person company. We have 20 rooms in Slack. And this is the dev channel. This is only the 3 of us. This does not include the CEO. It does not include the customer support people. It's just the 3 of us. And I actually didn't join that channel for a couple weeks because I wanted it to feel like a safe environment for them to talk. So I try and interject as little as I can in there, unless I see them going in a direction, or they ask for a tiebreaker opinion, which happens as well. So what about you?
When when I've been CTO in that role, my goal, I have two ways I want to spend my time primarily, and I'll drop everything else to make sure that these things are taken care of. Are the people on my team, do they know what they should be working on? Like every day, I want to have an awareness of what the next, like I've always had when I've been in this role, just me and another layer, so to speak. Like,
Sure.
not, I didn't have mid managers with someone else. So my goal was that everyone on my team would always know exactly what they should be doing now. And if they finish what they're doing, what they should be doing next. And if someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have no idea what I should do now," that was on me because I didn't move a car to their lane, or they didn't have, like, I hadn't discussed with them prior. That was my number one thing. And then two was about blockers.
Sure.
Is anyone on my team blocked by something that is out of their control? That may be politically sensitive for them to handle if being blocked. If requirements aren't clear, if questions haven't been answered, if they're waiting on something from someone, like that was my number two thing. And both of those top two goals always took way more time than it sounds like it should. But that was my thing is, when I made those two items a priority, my teams were so productive. I cannot, it still blows my mind to this day how productive my teams were when I just asked those two questions every time I was asking, what should I be doing? It was making sure all those were done.
Sure.
Now, the third thing that I would say I spent my time on was understanding what was coming down the pipe. What does my team need to be doing short term and long term overall as a group? Like, what do we need to have done? So it could be I'm doing research on technology that I'm going to have someone, like, I'd be looking at the product scope and saying, what do I need to be slicing and dicing up to put in the queue so that people know their priorities? Like, that's what I spent most of my other time on. But I mean, honestly, after those first two items, everything else was dictated third, really, by meetings that the rest of the executive team and stakeholders needed me in. So that's what that's how I guess, set up my time. I don't know if how does that relate to what you do now?
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I mean, it's silly. It's silly if I think about all the things I do. Um, part of the job is going over invoices.
Yeah.
So we have a probably 10 to 20 different invoices that come in every month. Some of them are the same every month. It's just a matter of me seeing the invoice and going, yep, we still need to incur that cost this month. No, there's nothing we can do to reduce it. And then some of them are variable. And then it's a case of comparing the history, and seeing if there are any trends that are worrisome. Which I say that, and the funny thing is this survey, the absolute least, the thing that was ranked the lowest as far as concerns for 2019 on this survey was capital expenditure or operational expenditure optimization. So it sounds like that is in no way a concern, but it's still a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And about once a year, I'll update the list of recurring costs we have with the CEO. I'll check it with her because she gets all the credit card receipts and she sees what comes in every month. So I check with her to see if she's got anything I'm not seeing. And then it's just a checkpoint. So that's one of the additional things that comes up. I'm trying to think of other things that come up besides just kind of riding the wave of development, which is kind of where I sit right now.
Well, I guess the question I would ask is, what would you say is the worst use of your time right now? Because I'm going to tell you it's when you decide to code stuff yourself. But but really, the without getting back into that discussion we've had before, like of the stuff you're doing,
Yeah.
are you like, I know I keep doing it, I really should outsource this, I should hire someone else to do it, this is real, I need to let this go? Like, what do you think is the least valuable use of your time?
I think for the most part, and it depends on which job we're talking about. So we can't pick on me for doing coding myself, because I don't do that with Aspire EDU.
Yeah.
They've gone well past my Python knowledge to where I can help out there. The least efficient use of my time on that is, there are times when one of the developers will come up with a direction to go, an architectural decision, and it's based on what's new, what's hot, what's cool, and chasing down whether that's the right way to go or whether it's just the new hot thing. That actually could be the least efficient use of my time. And not that new ideas shouldn't be encouraged, because they should, and that's not what I'm saying. It's more, there have been some times when it's been just chasing the hot thing, and we end up going in circles. I end up going, having a back and forth conversation of, you're not showing me the benefit, you're telling me why it's cool. Show me the benefit.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the least efficient use of my time, is having those discussions that that didn't prove fruitful. Doesn't mean they were wrong to have, but that does make them the least efficient use of my time, I guess. There's some efficiency there in that I'm making sure the developer feels they're heard, but beyond that, that they don't prove fruitful.
Mm-hmm. For me to answer that question, I'm trying to think what I always thought was a waste of time when I was in that role was mainly meetings that they had one question for me, but I had to sit through the whole thing to actually get to that question.
Sure.
That happened a lot until I basically put my foot down. Like, what else was?
I'll throw one more in there, although it's not. I wouldn't say it's inefficient. It's just part of what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The security surveys. Now they contribute to the sales process, so they can't be seen as things that shouldn't be done, but they're not very efficient in that every security survey I've done has been different. So it's been a matter of answering the same question on a different form in maybe a slightly different way. And there does not seem to be, when potential clients come to us, there does not seem to be a way to say, hey, here's a website that lists everything we do. Ask questions based off this. They have no interest in that. They need it done in their form, because then they probably apply some scoring to it and so on and so forth. But that's another inefficient thing I would add.
I would say if I were to look at my schedule in the past, group meetings were a humongous waste of time compared to one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Because group meetings causes people to sit around, daydream, not be in the meeting. Like, honestly, you ask someone a question and they're like, "What? Can you ask that again?" Because their brain would already left the table or the Zoom chat or whatever. So group meetings beyond 5 to 10 minutes were probably the worst use of time, versus one-on-ones I would do with people. I always found to be great because they were quick, to the point, um, efficient, and I never really felt like maybe it's inefficient for me to talk to three different people separately, but there was 5 minutes of high value versus 15 minutes of no one remembering what the meeting was about. So that's probably something in terms of use of time, reduce group meetings.
Yeah, and that's certainly the case in some of my prior roles, where we'd get 10 people together, and the larger the group, the more efficient it gets. And then it becomes a more of, were you at the meeting for political reasons or to actually
Yeah.
get stuff done? Um,
Yeah.
so that's
Um,
absolutely the truth.
so then the next question is, if you could increase the amount of time you spent doing something, what would that be?
I'll rephrase it as the most efficient, or the most fruitful. Um, I think I would say doubling down maybe on your one-on-one meetings, um, because I think time investment on building relationships with the team, with team members specifically, mentoring, guiding, learning yourself. I think those are all positive effects that multiply.
Yeah.
As opposed, they don't solve a single problem. They multiply the time you spend.
For me, next time I'm CTO somewhere, I assume I'll get that role again sometime. Um, my goal is to spend more time networking for recruiting, because what I've learned throughout this process of being in the looking for a job when I moved to KC, and having hired people before and seeing how bad companies are at hiring and why they didn't even get a shot to talk to me. Granted, I'm a good employee, of course, but when I look at when I look back on that process I went through over the last year, the people, the network was the stronger source of hires for me in the past, and for me getting farther with a company than any of this do a job post, do like have people apply randomly, that kind of thing, LinkedIn crap, that like that stuff has such low quality on the attraction recruiting scale. But what I've always when I look back on all my jobs, almost all of them involved me meeting a person linked to the hiring, in like meeting in person, and then the process was more efficient. There seemed to be there was no barriers to getting hired. Like, it just worked better. And so for me, I think my next time I'm in a CTO role, where I still say that your number one job as any type of chief officer is hire good people empower them to do their jobs. I think networking amongst the tech community myself, not sending out an HR person, not sending out my employees and expecting my employees to hire people, but me doing the networking to talk to as many developers as I can is probably a use of time I would aim to do more of, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's the hard that's not easy to do. Depending on personality, that's not easy to do. And I would say personality and age.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean you have to go out in person. Let me put it that way too.
Yeah,
Like when I was in a role as CTO, when I worked for a company in Evanston, I hired a couple consultants based on the fact that I went out and I saw how they were doing, that they were doing tech talks, or they were part of they were writing blog posts about a certain topic that I needed assistance with. So I don't want to, it doesn't have to be like, I don't want to just recruit out of the KC market. So I'm not going to go
right,
to meetups just because it's local. And
right,
I'm not aiming to hire people because they're going to drive to my home office. So it's really more of, when I talk about networking, it can be anything from knowing the field of people available to me that are out in the community in some way. And if that means reading their blog posts to see like expertise, seeing how they respond to people on Twitter, reaching out to them and talking to them, that kind of thing. Like, there's all sorts of ways you can do it without having to go and like burn an hour commute and sit through 2 hours of a meetup just to meet people. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is a good use of time as a CTO is networking on and offline to find the future people you need to hire or contract or bring in to do parts of the work you need done. That's what I
right.
would say.
Your description there brings up an interesting thought. I was trying to navigate through what you were saying, and I agree with everything you said, except if you're trying to bring in not a tech leader, not one of your senior programmers, but one of your base of your team. So not a junior guy, just a mid-level part of your team. Where are you going to find those online? And this may be a topic for a separate conversation, because the ones that are writing the blog posts most of the time are going to be your senior ones. So those are going to be your senior ones. Now there are some mid-level ones who approach the conversation, who approach the blogging as getting their thoughts out there and things like that. But you have an objection to that.
No, I don't believe that they are the only ones writing blog posts, because I know that when people do the boot camps and stuff, that they are encouraged to become part of the writing community.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you that if you're only hiring people that take the time to write blog posts, you definitely are not. You're going to find people that have a lot of free time on their hands, and maybe they're not working on stuff. Like, the idea is, I mean, my goal is to hire people who are good at their jobs, and therefore they are usually employed. And
Right.
that's like, being unemployed does not mean I won't hire you, but there's a lot of good people. When we have an unemployment rate in this country in the single digits, it means that most people have a means of employment. So what you're trying to do is find the people that are fed up with the scenario they're in, but they're also productive where they are.
Right.
And if they're busy, like I don't write blog posts. I don't actually do meetup talks and stuff and go to conferences. That's just not something that's not where I exert my talent. So I'm not a good candidate to be found that way. But I am doing a podcast, every week, every other week or so with you. So, there is a means to hear about what I'm doing in that case. So
But
the
again, you're a senior. If you're
Mhm.
looking for that person that's got 3 to 5 years experience, 2 to 4, somewhere in that range, to where you're just trying to fill out a team,
so
I would argue it's harder to find that person through that channel.
so right now there are 2 or 3 Chicago-based Slack groups that I'm still a part of,
Okay.
and there are 2 to 3 Slack groups that I'm a part of in Kansas City. And at some point, at least once a week, someone posts, "I'm looking,"
Right.
or someone posts, "I have a friend looking," and they are not all seniors. So the community is talking about this. The community is out there. Twitter has people say, "I'm now looking for work." Now, the same token, someone goes, "I'm now looking for work," and then I see nothing but a stream of 2 months of "I hate my company, I hate my job" posts, and I'm like, okay, I couldn't bring you onto my team because of the negativity you're displaying publicly. But
Right.
the truth is, the people are meeting less and less in person and joining groups and talking about what they're doing. Also, Hacker News is a community. There's a lot of crap on there, but there's also people that have well thought out posts and replies and questions. Like, I know a
Mhm.
couple people that have asked questions in the Ruby and JavaScript world where they're asking questions above the level of a beginner because they're now starting to move into that more complex application development they have to do. And they're hitting ceilings because no one else is there to help them at wherever they're working. But they're like, those are the people that like, how they phrase their question, how they respond to the answers they get, and the wrong answers tells me a lot about who they are. So,
Sure.
You got Slack, Stack Overflow, Twitter, Hacker News. I'm sure Reddit is a good community to filter through. So I guess my point is those are where I feel like you can find those people out there um, and see how they communicate with others, and they are not all seniors. And that's where I would
Yeah.
go look first.
Yeah. And the other thing, if I can flip this conversation, I think we've gotten off topic, but I think it's okay to chase this down a little.
Yeah.
Um, the You can take this approach the other way as well, which is post a job opening, okay, and see what influx you get, um, because there's an old mantra that you hire before you need the person.
Yeah.
You hire before it's needed, and then that way you get time to go through potential candidates. And the reason I say that is that's a good use of time to network and develop potential leads by going and looking for them. But the other way is to have them come to you,
Mm-hmm.
and use those same channels. Use Twitter. Use your own company's website for that. Use a place like We Work Remotely. Use Women Who Code. They've got a newsletter that goes out every week. So I would say that's another way to drive potential candidates to you that you can take your time vetting,
Yeah.
and maybe eventually and maybe build up a list, so that even if there's a person who's maybe not a fit today, they're a fit a year from now, you can reach out to them and say, hey, you were looking at this time, are you still looking, and something to that effect. So
Yeah.
that's a different way to attack that as well.
All right. Well, yeah, I think we did get off the topic a little, or if we focused on one topic in particular. which is nothing new. So yeah, so that's what that's how I would focus on my use of time in the CTO role. And I think it's always good to, as an introspective type of process, to look back and go, how have I been using my time?
Right.
Am I doing things that other people could do better, faster, more efficient? Am I blocking people? Does everyone know what they should be doing? That's how I choose to use my time when I was in that role. In addition to, I had to code some stuff because in the day it was like limited budget, limited expertise amongst the other people. Is usually the extra use of my time was usually janitorial tech duties.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that if everyone else is getting the meat of the stuff done and I can take the cleanup. That's fine with me.
Right.
So.
Right. All right. Well, very good. We'll put a link to that survey in the post in the notes, and that way people can look through all these different topics, most of which we've talked about at one time or another.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you. Talk again soon.
All right. Later.
Thanks for listening to the CTO Think podcast. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at ctothink.com. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. Patreon contributions help us to produce episode transcripts, which allow people that are deaf or hard of hearing to access the show. If you have feedback, ideas, or want to be a guest, please email us at hello@ctothink.com. Show music is Dumpster Dive by Mark Wallach, licensed by premiumbeat.com. Voiceover work by meganvoices.com. You'll hear from us next week.